Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Luo Yan, Communications Director of CCG. Welcome to CCG's Ambassadors Roundtable Series and book launch. Firstly, let me introduce the agenda of this meeting. There are 4 sessions. The first session is welcome and introduction. The second session is remarks. Then the book launch. Finally is the roundtable discussion. Now, let's warmly welcome Dr. Mabel Miao Lü, the Secretary General of CCG and Springer Series co-editor, to chair the opening session and introduce our guest. Please.
Thank you for kind introduction. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year. Good afternoon. Welcome to Center for China and Globalization's Ambassadors Roundtable series featuring the release of 2 ambassadorial volumes, The Future of China's Development and Globalization, Views from Ambassadors to China in English, published by Springer Nature, and the Chinese edition of the first ambassadorial volume, China and the World in the Changing Context, Perspectives from Ambassadors to China, 驻华大使看中国与世界, published by the World Affairs Press. The Future of China's Development and Globalization, Views from Ambassadors in China, is our second ambassadorial volume, the 7th and the latest volume of the China and Globalization Series published by CCG and Springer Nature together. Previously, we have published China and the World in the Changing Context, Perspectives from the Ambassadors to China. That is our first ambassadorial volume and is part of the series. This series is co-edited by me and Dr. Huiyao Wang, seeking to create balanced global perspectives by gathering the views of highly influential scholars and opinions from around the world on issues of policy and governance. In this series, we have published 1 book for 38 world-famous opinion leaders and scholars, 1 book for well-known scholar Kishore Mahbubani, which has downloaded 4 million English books in the world, 1 book for commercial leaders of multinational companies leader in China, and 1 book for the father of soft power, Professor Joseph Nye, the soft power and U.S.-China competition and cooperation. We also published 1 book for Professor Graham Allison. It's going to be released, that book. Graham Allison is famous for Thucydides trap on how China and US can escape the Thucydides trap. That book is going to release. In this world of constant flux, perspectives of ambassadors to China and both invaluable and illuminating for their insights into global affairs and China's development. To share these perspectives and promote the conversation in China, globalization, and other pressing topics of these times, CCG has compiled these 2 volumes of original works by ambassadors to China from a wide range of countries. This book launch is co-hosted by Center for China and Globalization and the MFA-affiliated World Affairs Press and Springer Nature. Today, we are honored to have ambassadors contribute to the 2 books, invited ambassadors and diplomats to China, heads of publishers and think tank experts to jointly release and discuss these 2 new publications and share their insights and foresight on the bilateral relationship with China, prospects for deepening cooperation, as well as the future of development in a world in which China is increasingly an essential part of the overall equation. First, let me introduce our distinguished guests. Today, we have invited 14 ambassadors join us and several senior diplomats are here. They are His Excellency Sita Chatterjee, UN Resident Coordinator in China. Welcome. His Excellency Rahmatal Osman, Ambassador of African Union to China. Welcome. His Excellency Bruno Angelate, Ambassador Beijing to China. His Excellency Hannes Hassel, Ambassador of Estonia to China. His Excellency George Toledo Abinala, Ambassador of European Union to China. Welcome. His Excellency Thoril Ibsen, Ambassador of Iceland to China. His Excellency Husa Husseini, Ambassador of Jordan to China. Her Excellency Sanin Budesit, Ambassador of Norway to China. His Excellency Paulo Nissimento, Ambassador of Portugal to China. Her Excellency Alaka Suhadonic, Ambassador of Slovenia to China. His Excellency Rafael de Zacala Mazzaredo, Ambassador of Spain to China. His Excellency Per Augustsson, Ambassador of Sweden to China. His Excellency George Bury, Ambassador of Switzerland to China. And senior diplomats, Mr. Pajulian Silalahi, Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of Indonesia. Mr. Aramiro Taikakenya, Consular, Embassy of New Zealand. Mr. Bilal Khandri, Deputy Chief of Mission, Embassy of Pakistan. Dr. Miraji Yusi, Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of Tanzania. Mr. Mahdi Bazadin, Charge d'Affaires, Embassy of South Africa. Dr. Antonia Gaspar, Counselor of Education, Embassy of Mozambique. We also have distinguished guests from publishers. Mr. Cui Chun, Chairman of the World Fair Press, former DDG of General Office of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Mr. William Archer, he's online, Editorial Director for Business, Economics, Political Sciences, and Law at Springer Nature. His support is very invaluable on the publishing of the China and Globalization Series. Ms. Wang Qing, Editor-in-Chief of the World Fair Press. Now, let us give a warm welcome to Mr. Cui Chun, Chairman of the World Affairs Press, to give his remark. Welcome, Mr. Cui.
Distinguished Mr. Wang Huiyao, Your Excellencies, from Dr. Miao's experiences, it seems that pronouncing names is a hard nut to crack. So I will obviously omit this part. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good afternoon. I would like to thank the Center for China and Globalization for inviting me to this book launch. Congratulations to the CCG and the Springer Nature Group for their successful cooperation in publishing the future of China's development and globalization, views from ambassadors to China. And congratulations to the CCG and World Affairs Press on jointly launching the Chinese version as scheduled. On behalf of all my colleagues in WAP, I would like to salute and thank all those who have contributed to the publication of the two books, especially CCG and Your Excellencies present today. The publication of these two books is highly relevant. First, the publication is timely. At present, international political dispute and military conflicts are still raging in some parts of the world. The global development and the security situation is intricate and complex, and international relations have undergone major and profound evolution. Yet, the overall direction of human development and progress will not change. The overall dynamics of world history moving forward amid twists and turns will not change. And the overall trend toward a shared future for the international community will not change. Peace and development remains the underlying trend, and only cooperation for mutual benefit can deliver. It is of particular significance for the ambassadors to share your understanding of the general trend of the times, focus on right path, promote cooperation, and discuss ways for common development by enhancing mutual understanding and seeking common ground while sharing differences. Second, the books offer perspectives. The books, through the unique views of more than 20 ambassadors to China, show the role that China has played in its joint efforts with the rest of the world to work for a more open, inclusive, and balanced economic globalization that is beneficial to all, and to realize modernization. This speaks volume about both the importance attached to and its expectations for China to play a more certain and positive role in a highly fluid international situation by countries around the world. Last but not least, the books will contribute to the exchanges between China and the rest of the world in a bid to facilitate other countries to share in China's development opportunities. The ambassadors' proposals on deepening cooperation with China in political, economic, diplomatic, cultural, and educational fields will help promote cooperation between China and the world and contribute to our efforts to consolidate and expand the global network of partnerships, build an equal and orderly multipolar world, and advance a universally beneficial and inclusive economic globalization. Your Excellencies, dear friends, as a press with a strong foundation and a unique position in diplomatic publishing, WAP feels very honored to publish the Chinese version of China and the World in a Changing Context. The history of WAP traces back to the year of 1934, when our magazine World Affairs was first published. WAP has maintained close contact and cooperation with diplomatic institutions of China and in China, enhancing the mutual understanding and friendship between China and different countries. A number of ambassadors have contributed to and granted interviews to our popular magazines, such as World Affairs Victoria, introducing the development of their countries and their views on the international situation. I would like to take this chance to reaffirm WAP's commitment to even closer cooperation with CCG and Diplomatic Corps. First, let's work together to publish more good books. Let us jointly interpret the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative. We could jointly advocate the common values of humanity, promote a new model of international relations, and help build an open, inclusive, clean, and beautiful world of lasting peace, universal security, and common prosperity. Second, WAP is ready to expand and upgrade cooperation with all parties by introducing excellent books of different countries to China and by showcasing wonderful human culture and colorful life of your countries to China. We will help promote exchanges and mutual learning among civilizations, increase understanding and friendship among people of all countries, and contribute to building a community with a shared future for mankind. Third, WAP is ready to maintain close contact with your excellencies. You are most welcome to use the platform to share with the Chinese people and the rest of the world your experiences in China, your insights on bilateral cooperation, international situation, and hotspot issues. The goodwill to carry on the bilateral friendship between our peoples, and your proposals for common development. To conclude, I would like to thank CCG again for your cordial invitation. Wish the book launch a great success. As Chinese New Year or the Year of the Dragon is just around the corner, I wish you all the best of luck, prosperity, peace, and health. I sincerely invite all of you, guests and friends, to World Affairs Press as our guests. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cui Chun. Your great remarks. And when I was a child, I read a lot of books to understand the rest of the world. Through the World Affairs Press, you had so many wonderful books to introduce the rest of the world to Chinese readers. Thank you again, Mr. Cui. Next, we would like to invite Mr. William Archer, the editorial director for business, economics, and political sciences and law at Springer Nature, to give his remarks. Mr. William Archer is online. Please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
My name is William Achauer. I'm editorial director for business, economics, politics, and law books at Springer Nature, and I'm joining you all today from Singapore, where I'm based. First of all, I would like to thank Henry and Mabel for the opportunity to say a few words to introduce this new volume to the open access book series, China and Globalization, which is published under the editorial leadership of both Henry and Mabel at CCG. In March of 2022, the fourth volume of the series was published under the title China and the World in a Changing Context, Perspectives from Ambassadors to China. That volume presented hands-on experiences ambassadors to China from around the world describe about their country's collaboration with China in terms of areas such as trade and investment, regional economic cooperation, sustainable development, technology and innovation, entrepreneurship, green partnerships, just to name a few. Many of the ambassadors provided in their essays historic overviews of the relations their countries have had with China going back many decades. To date, China and the World in a Changing Context has received an impressive 163,000 chapter downloads, as well as 6 citations. As with all the volumes published in the China and Globalization series, the fourth book in the series was a success in terms of worldwide reach and readership. It's also terrific that the Chinese language edition of China and the World in a Changing Context will be published by World Affairs Press in conjunction with today's event. Today, we are delighted to celebrate the release of the 7th volume to appear in China and Globalization. This book again features compelling contributions by many ambassadors from around the world to China. The ambassadors reflect upon the bilateral relationships with China, prospects for deepening cooperation, as well as the future development in a world in which China is increasingly an essential part of the overall equation. The title of the book is The Future of China's Development and Globalization, Views from Ambassadors to China. A small number of ambassadors who contributed to China and the World in a Changing Context reappear in this new volume with new chapters, and many new voices from countries around the world feature in this new book. CCG, over its complete history, has made a profound effort to recognize and highlight the unique role of ambassadors, and it has strived to cement lasting relationships with those who are represented by developing and developed nations from everywhere around the planet. The Ambassadors Roundtable is a fine example of such efforts, and it is a regular and eagerly anticipated part of CCG's annual China and Globalization Forum. The book is divided into 3 main sections, covering the history and current state of relations with China, perspectives on major issues, and how various countries are working with China to face these, as well as the future of development in a world in which China has a more pronounced and pivotal role. Section 1, entitled The Ebb and Flow of Relations with China, provides an overview of several key countries' relations with the People's Republic of China from a historical perspective up to the present. Section 2 of the book is entitled On the Issues, the Immense Potential. It focuses on individual issues that China and countries around the world are focusing on with respect to development and global recovery. Section 3, the final section of this book, is entitled Global Development and a Future with China, and it focuses on continued development and roads forward as the world continues to change. In the spirit of the China and Globalization book series as a highly impactful forum for important and productive dialogue concerning the world's future, I'd like to congratulate all the ambassadors, as well as Henry and Mabel, for making this new volume possible. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. William Archer. Now let's welcome Dr. Huiyao Wang, President of Center for China and Globalization and the co-editor of this Globalization series, to introduce these books. Dr. Wang.
Thank you, Mabel. Mr. Chen, Mr. William Archer, and of course, all our distinguished ambassadors, and of course also our representative from UN and all the media, and of course the CCG senior fellows, and of course we have, we'll be online, and I'm sure a lot of people will watch this online as well throughout the world. So it's really a great pleasure for me to, together with our World Affair Press, which is affiliated with Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we're a very prestigious publishing house in China, and of course also with Springer Nature, one of the largest publishers in the world, which they have thousands of libraries and distribution channels throughout the world, very famous for their distribution. So we know that Dr. Li, China head of Springer Nature, is also with us today. So we are very happy take this occasion to launch these 2 very important book. One is, of course, it's our book of this China Globalization Series, which we did 2022 during the COVID pandemic. And I remember we had a big Ambassador Roundtable at that time. We have document that. It's been distributed and received a very well response. And now we have that book translated into Chinese now, and which is very important for more Chinese readers to read our ambassadors' views and their analysis. Of course, the great contribution they've made in the bilateral and the multilateral relation. So again, today we are launching the new book of the Springer Nature, the CCG, Mabel and I and our team has edited for that book. I'm very glad to share that a bit of the. I'm going to use the PPT here. Let me see if can. I don't see it on the side screen. Okay. Yeah. So that's the first book. I'm going to briefly just introduce you to the book that we have done in the last number of years. Well, I don't see how that move. Okay, that's the book. Okay, China and the world in the changing context. So you see all the handsome gentlemen and ladies on the cover, all those excellencies, over
of almost 30 of them ambassador in China. I know some of them has gone back, but their legacy remain, of course. So this book is the fourth book of China and Globalization, and that's what we have been translated today with the great support of Mr. Trey of the World Fair Publishing House. And so that book actually in the English world has downloaded over 163,000 already. And also it's free on the Kindle of Amazon is also free. So you can see widespread. Of course, we have made Ambassador Roundtable. We have published a lot of report in China. So it's very well covered. I have to say, actually these two books has made history because it was first time, but never before have anybody done anything like that, is to have old ambassadors in China write a book in English and publish around the world, and have that English book translated into Chinese and published throughout China. So I will congratulate all the ambassadors. You made a history. So you are the authors of this great book. So I think this is important, shows that we can, ambassadors as really truly ambassador bridge the global, the differences, and particularly during the COVID, it's so important that ambassadors play such a vital role in communicating, in making the understanding and between China and the outside world. So I want to congratulate all the authors of great ambassadors. And of course, CCG has been very qualified to do this because we've been running, I don't remember how many times Ambassador Roundtables already. We've done quite a number of them. I mean, the latest we've done was recently. Of course, we had a U.S. ambassador, we had a EU ambassador, Indonesia ambassador. As you can see from the photo, that we have so many ambassadors attended that Ambassador Roundtable just in the 9th China and Globalization Forum. And I think on that occasion, Chinese climate envoy, Minister Xie, said he wants to visit the U.S. And then Ambassador Nick Burns, very positively commented that, and that ended up in the Sunnyland, the meeting they had with John Kerry. And of course, that paved the way for also COP28 of China-US consensus on some of the issues. So this is really great. We had many ambassadors actually make their first appearance at the CCG Roundtable. I remember the German ambassador, Ambassador Flo, actually, Patricia Flo, made her first public speaking event at CCG Roundtable. Probably Nick Burns did the same. His first public speaking event is also at the CCG. So I think we had many occasions honored to host so many ambassadors. And so I think, it's important. Ambassadors are bridges and bellwether for the globalizations. And of course, the special group of ambassadors, of course, they spoke. You're all based in Beijing, based in China. You can, see this country firsthand, with your knowledge of your own country, and that's really put China and exchange with the world is really great. So I think that CCG has been established for the 16 years. We are really hope that we can continue our strong cooperation with all the ambassadors and the diplomatic community and of international organizations in China. So actually, this translation of the book, we had 21 ambassadors in China who have actually published this book. And so I think Bill has just now introduced many of the content of that book. I'm not going to go into details, but I think, this book can really be a mutually beneficial and then, talk about those global challenges and how to create a common ground for the future. And of course, so never before we had such a strong ambassador team to contribute, including most of them 21 articles and some of their speeches, and also from all over the world. We have so many of that. So those are the photos of those contributors. I'm sure some of them has already left, but you know, we have now the new ambassador here to continue the legacy, the spirit, the continuity, which is very good. I know we will also have an ambassador from Spain will leave us also soon, but we thank him for the contributions made in 2 books probably. So we really appreciate that. And we have African from countries, ambassador from Africa, and I know some of them have gone. But I'm very glad ambassador from African Union with us throughout this process. Really appreciate. And so we are very happy that he also made a contribution. And then now it's in Chinese now. So and not only that, we have country, you know, ambassador from different places, Asia and other countries as well. Americans too, you know, it's widely placed, and from New Zealand and everywhere. So those are the list of the ambassadors we have just covered in this Chinese book, which Mr. Cui just introduced. Of course, I think Bill touched on a bit of the content of the book, but now we've been translating that into Chinese. Basically, the first part is more about bilateral relations, mutually beneficial relations. We have all the titles. I'm not going into details of that. And of course, that covers all the countries we talked about. Very good examples of bilateral relations. The second part of that book is really talked about facing global challenges together. I think now China and of course, all other countries, the UN and all the international agencies, we need to work together. So how we can China and work with the outside world is also part of our roundtable today to really talk about how to meet this common challenge like climate change and AI and digital pandemic. Of course, the conflict we're having right now, that is all unprecedented. And so, of course, the part 3 of this book that translated into Chinese talk about creating a common future, how we can really build a connected future that is really important, that beneficial to all the countries. So, so I think this is the book, the first book I would like to talk. And of course, we had many ambassadors who attended the CCG Roundtable, and I mean, like the former Canadian ambassador, he made his first public appearance at a CCG event, even during the difficult times of the bilateral relations. So I think we've been really very accommodating. I think as a bridge, as CCG's mission, we want to connect China and the world. So I'm not going into the details of all those titles and topics of our ambassadors, but basically, they all voiced very good views, very good ideas, made a lot of good suggestions, and we hear those things directly from our ambassadors, which is important. Ambassadors not only represent their country, but also represent their people, and then their voice is so important for the Chinese reader to know. And so I really want to congratulate and thankful for all the ambassadors' contributions. So this is really great, and so let's really navigate the global shift together, and then collaborate and for shared success and build a better future. So that's really all about. So again, this is the first Chinese book. I'm going to cover just briefly for the second book of our English book that we're publishing today, worldwide. The second book about the future of China's development and globalization perspective from ambassadors to China. This is the new book that published by Spring Nature and CCG together. So we're very glad. For the last year, we have invited so many ambassadors to join us. And then this book is very good. Actually, China and Globalization Series, it's already published 8 books in the last 2 years. Most of them are free downloads, and has been very well read. Several million, as Mabel mentioned, some books are downloaded on 4 or 5 million. Altogether, probably 10 million has been downloaded of books of this series. So we make this actually a brand of the CCG, China and Globalization Series. And among them, 2 books are from ambassadors. The second book of this Future of China Development and Globalization. And so for this book is also, again, it's a quite an impressive book. We had many contributors And then we hope that we'll, I just talked to Mr. Trey, that, maybe we'll publish this book again with the World Press, Fair Press for this second book to the Chinese. So this is, again, it's a keep, the thing is you have to persist doing and keep doing that to continuously, reflect the ambassador views and the ideas and recommendations and their wisdom. And so this is very good, built upon a large number of ambassador roundtable we've been doing together with other ambassadors, as I mentioned before. So this book is again now, today is a good occasion. We're publishing both the Chinese and English version of two different books, ambassadors' views on China. And actually after the event, we're going to have our new Chinese Year reception. We'll have over 100 people tonight, and many more ambassadors will come again. And so we have also people from ministry, from different organizations. So it's a very good occasion to celebrate again Chinese New Year together with our launching of the book tonight as well. And we hope all you stay to see more people. We have a number of senior officials confirmed to attend, and also a number of more ambassadors to come. So again, I mean, this book is an open source book, and it has actually will be online, and we talk that we make that into Chinese as well. I think that basically ambassadors need a larger voice in a fragmented world. I mean, that's probably we have to emphasize. They coming from different countries. Their voice is so important, and we have to hear them in China, and of course reflect their views, their experience, their practice, and their collaboration with China. So this is really, again, a great occasion to do that. So we have 28 on this book. We have 28 Beijing-based ambassadors in China, of course, with 22 essays we collected, and then 5 feature presentation and 3 dialogues and 4 speeches. So it's actually more than a number of occasions they have. And the ambassador coming from Europe, Africa, Asia, and America, Oceania. So it's quite well represented. Of course, you see all the pictures. Again, some of them still here, some of them have left. But again, we continue to work with our ambassadors. We know some of them has been very active. We're very pleased to see them here in our publishing event. And so this is really something never done before, and we try to bring all the perspective together. And so all the ambassadors, we really appreciate their contributions. So this is a list of the ambassadors contributed. I will not go into detail, but on this book, I just emphasize a little bit. But the content of that, the first part is really talk about the ebb and flow of the relation with China. I mean, of course, last number of years, China and outside world and the relations has been really, important, more and more important. And then how to reflect that is really in many countries, ambassadors' analysis. So this is really great. I remember I talked to Ambassador George Toledo when he came to Beijing. They said, we have a book. We need to invite you to write. And he did contribute, and I really appreciate your timely contribution. And so the second part is really on the issue of immense potential in cooperation with China. I mean, as China becomes the second largest economy, of course, there's opportunities, but also there's challenges too. So how to make this cooperation work better? I mean, it's also, I think, on the agenda of all the ambassadors. And then there's a reflection on that. And of course, I mean, we have a lot of common challenges, technology, climate, green technology, and all the public health, all those things. I think many ambassadors gave a very good contribution, including the equality, women's rights, and everything. Very, very good. The third part is talk about really the global development and future cooperation. And again, I mean, we had so many ambassadors contribute very good articles on those issues. And given the time, I will not go in the details, but you can see from the book, basically. And then we had one, I have to mention, one of the good things we've done with ambassador from the Nordic countries, 5 Nordic countries. We had Ambassador Roundtable here. Very good discussion. We have been, include that into the book on how we can learn from the Commonwealth that's already been built in the Nordic countries. So very good experience of that. And I just met the former ambassador of Sweden at OECD. I mean, OECD invited me to give a talk with all the ambassadors of OECD. Your former ambassador Hannah was there, and we had also afterwards, there was a 10 ambassador, we had lunch together. Was a 33 ambassador attended from OECD during the Paris Peace Forum when I was there. So it's really good experience. I mean, I can see this section, specialized section. We did another ambassador roundtable with Pacific Alliance of Latin American countries. We did one big one with African Union, 64 African Union countries attended our event. So we had many things like that. So we hope that we will continue. So there's some dialogue we have included. We did quite a few dialogues. CCG will continue to do some dialogues with our ambassadors roundtable, and of course in the future, we hope to do that. And then many made a very good speech at our event. We have also collected some of that into this book. So very representative, very wide-ranging voice from different parts of the world, very valuable, useful, and so we learn a lot. I mean, as a think tank for China and global, so it's really important for us to do that. And so I'm not going to cover all the details. I think you have read the book. I will just probably conclude. Basically, let's adapt to the dynamic global changes and forge partnership for collective prosperity and build a resilient and connected globalization. I mean, that's the message we want to convey, and it's very important for that. So I also want to thank our team, of course, Dr. Lee from Springer, and also we had Emily from Springer, Shirley from CCG, and of our staff to also working with all ambassadors supporting this initiative. So again, I appreciate all your time. I know it's very valuable, but all your speeches, all your ideas will be well remembered, will be well promoted and discussed here at Roundtable. So again, thank you all for your contribution, and I thank the publisher of Springer Nature, and particularly our Chinese presence, Mr. Cui from World Fair Press, and Chief Editor Wang, and all the others for attending. So thank you all very much.
Now we will move on to the roundtable session, the China and Global Cooperation in 2024. Let's warmly welcome Dr. Wang Huiyao to chair this session.
Okay, thank you. So we had a very good warm up. I hope that you've been all very knowledgeable about this book now. But of course, your further views are really also welcome. And we know that today I know it's the end of the year or beginning of the year, very busy. All of you, I want to appreciate my thanks again for all of you taking time out of the busy schedule to join a discussion. I mean, the discussion today of this roundtable in conjunction with this book is of course, we know that, it's a CCG Ambassador Roundtable, and so to talk about the issues that we've been really facing for the new year. I mean, how we can, basically bilaterally and multilaterally, what are the opportunities and challenges in cooperating with China, of course. And of course, looking ahead, what opportunity in the global governance cooperation can be identified in 2024. This is really a very important year that we're going to have. With further ease of cross-border mobility, I mean, I'm very glad to see China has recently opened visas for it's more than about 6 now. European countries first four, and now recently added Switzerland and Ireland, and of course before that there's quite a few more countries already announced. I hope that we can do more to many more countries, and so we can talk about how we can really promoting these people-to-people exchanges and commercial ties between China and foreign countries. So those are some of the topics we would like to talk about. But perhaps first I would like to have our UN representative, Mr. His Excellency Syed Chatterjee, because he has, as a UN representative, he's very dedicated, very active, and in his tenure here, I think probably in the past 2 years, you've been really working a lot on the multilateral front, and so you are also ambassador too of the UN. So why don't you start first, and then I have Mr. European ambassador and the African ambassador to follow. Ambassador, please.
Thank you very much, Henry. Excellencies, Henry and Mabel, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me start by commending you and congratulating you for this marvelous piece of, it's actually a bit of a literary read as well. Not only is it highly informative from the different member states, but I was just browsing through some of the thoughts that have been put in by several of the ambassadors here. It's a wonderful accumulation of great thoughts of ambassadors that are present here in Beijing. And I think it's very pertinent that this book is coming out at a time like this, when the world is actually witnessing a set of interlocking crises. Never before, right up to the Second World War, have we ever seen something as deadly and dangerous that we are seeing today. An interlocking crisis where we've seen a health pandemic, where the fragility of the entire human race was put at full display, that a microscopic virus could upend economies and backslide our economies that rivaled the Great Depression of the 1930s. We are seeing a climate crisis, which is proving to be an existentialist threat, a threat which is so deadly, so dangerous, that it is upending societies, upending economies, and worse, the climate impact is having a direct impact on public health and food security. And then we are seeing a rise of conflicts. As the clock ticks, we are at about 70 global conflicts, 70 global conflicts. It just so happens that the conflict in Ukraine and the conflict in the Middle East has suddenly brought the kaleidoscope of conflicts back into our focus. But the fact of the matter is conflicts have been ongoing, and there has to be steps taken to kind of bring this to an end. And then besides these interlocking crises, we are seeing rise of great inequalities, increasing food insecurity, including financial stress, increasing financial stress. So it is a polycrisis of exponential proportion. And on top of that, we are seeing we've reached a grim milestone of approximately 120 million people displaced from their from their homes because of climate change, because of conflicts, because of instability globally. This is the largest displacement ever since the Second World War. So which brings back a very important question. What is happening to the space of multilateralism? And where do we go from here? We are, perhaps, as the UN Secretary General is talking about rescuing the Sustainable Development Goals in order to that's the one agreement where the world has agreed to in order to get the world forward and at least give humanity some hope, some belief that there is hope in the horizon. But given the fact that today we are seeing a fracture of multilateralism, we are seeing a complete breakdown of the Committee of Nations that we expect to move forward with, this is where we need the resolute purpose, not just of the permanent 5 members, but of a member state that I serve in China, to see how do we further bolster the very foundations of multilateralism, which needs to be resurrected without a doubt. The multilateralism, the way the UN system operated of post-1945 has to change. That time of change is here, and that is why my Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, has launched the boldest reforms of the UN, not just of the development system, but the peace and security side and all of it. But he's facing incredible headwinds in trying to do that. Incredible headwinds. Vested interests continue to dominate this. And unless the UN is able to shift gears, which is what he's trying to propel the UN into, making it a more dynamic institution of multilateralism, it is destined to become a dinosaur. And which is where the role of the member states, and therefore these reflections that I see in this book today are a marked advocacy document, which I intend to send to the Secretary General's office as well, to share with him some of the ideas which are actually emanating from the membership here, which is perhaps the most important membership that we have here. In fact, I think I can tell you this, as the UN Resident Coordinator, having served for the United Nations for the past 25 years, the level of intellectual capital and brilliance that the ambassadors of member states bring in China is quite remarkable. In fact, I would term it as the best in class. And I think this knowledge needs to go back. And what can we do now further this as we approach the Summit of the Future in September 2024 at the UN General Assembly? So therefore, I have a proposal here, which I've already written to Foreign Minister Wang Yi as well as to Vice Minister Ma, is what can we do as the membership here in China, together with our host country, China, together with an organization like CCG, to perhaps even think of a pre-summit to the Summit of the Future and perhaps provide some inputs to the preparations of that summit. And I think that would be extremely important for the simple reason. What the Secretary General is trying to do in September is really trying to rescue multilateralism more than anything else. And what is it that we could give him in terms of ideas, in terms of knowledge, in terms of best practices, in terms of political advocacy, in order to make that opportunity a success? So I would conclude by saying that it is an honor for me here as the UN Resident Coordinator to China, not only to be present here, but to be part of a group of ambassadors who are true visionaries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sid, for your excellent opening as well. I think you know, all the ambassadors here, that UN your proposal is getting the members countries and have a consensus built among ambassadors, including Chinese organization. That'll be very important. So I appreciate your support and your presence, and also your appreciate for the book. Now I'd like to invite His Excellency George Toledo, I mean, the EU ambassador to China. I mean, George has been in China for over a year, and you've been very active. You've been, made a lot of high-level visit, and a lot of work has been done. And I think you are already well known in China, and then we'd like to hear from your view as well. Ambassador Toledo, please.
Thank you very much, Henry. Thank you very much to Mabel too, and to the CCG. Happy New Year to everybody. This very soon will start the Year of the Dragon. I am of the Year of the Dragon. I'm very happy. And if that means that we're going to do better than last year, that would be a good news. 2023 was difficult, a very busy one. In any case, I want to thank you too, because the CCG under your command has become one of the few remaining venues here where we can express ourselves openly, where we can express ourselves in public, and where our expressions, where our statements are even published, not only when we praise our host, but also when we discuss, when we say that we don't agree with our host, when we describe, in our case, our systemic rivalry. And the proof is that we have written part of a book that we are celebrating today, and it's published word by word, and it's online. And I must say that this is becoming increasingly difficult in China, and that's the bad news. The good news is that the CCG, we can count on the CCG. So thank you very much for that. 2023 was difficult, not only because the Russian aggression on Ukraine continued, but because after the 7th of October and this horrible terrorist attack in Israel, we have witnessed the start of a very tragic conflict, which is causing enormous human damage. So the situation for peace and stability has not improved. 2024 is challenging. Well, in our case, in the European Union and China in 2023 was extremely busy. As you know, we had the summit on the 7th of December, which was only the end of very intensive process of contacts. We had 4 vice presidents of the Commission, the president of the Commission herself, 5 commissioners, the High Representative visiting China. That was good news. Now we hope that we will be able to build on that to make progress in both our partnership and in our partnership, in our competition in trade and investment, but also in issues that belong to our systemic rivalry. 2024 will also be challenging for the European Union because we have the European elections, so we will have at the end of the year a new parliament, a new commission, a new president of the European Council. But we will have some more commissioners coming soon. One very good news is that we are preparing the first time in 5 years our people-to-people dialogue, and this is extremely important for us and for the European Union-China relationship. Unfortunately, both the Russian aggression on Ukraine is continuing. I'm afraid that we will have to commemorate on the 24th of February this horrible attack, Russian aggression on a sovereign country. We hoped that when we did that last year, we hope that we will never have to do it again. But not only do we have to do it again, but we are witnessing another crisis in the Middle East. We are trying to help in both from the European Union and with our like-minded partners. We are working very hard. In the case of the Middle East, we just had a Foreign Affairs Council in Brussels where we have invited and they have participated foreign ministers from Israel, from Egypt, from Saudi Arabia, a representative from the Arab League, and the minister from the Palestinian Authority. So we are trying to help the high on the table a peace plan for the region, which is based on the long-term, the only medium-long-term solution that this horrible crisis can have, which is the two-state solution. So this is what we are defending. And in the short term, we want this horrible human crisis to stop as soon as possible. And of course, the hostages to be released immediately. Climate will be another subject in which we will be centering our efforts. And we will do so, as we have been doing in the last years, in partnership with China. This is a very important part of partnership, which is producing results. It's producing results in issues where we had no progress a couple of years ago, and now we can see progress. And I'm talking about methane. I'm talking about other issues in the fight against climate change, in which we see a good, positive, constructive attitude by China, which is allowing us to have a very good partnership. And finally, I would only agree with the UN representative here about the need for an effective multilateralism based on rules on international law and the efficient use we must make of the multilateral system, which probably needs reform, but which in the meantime needs to be used by all of us according to the rules. Thank you very much. Again.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Toledo, for your also the opening remark. And you outlined a lot of challenges we're facing, and of course we have to really work together. I think particularly solving those crises, humanitarian crises is also a big toll of those conflicts, and it's extremely important that the UN and of course EU, China, US, and we all have to work together, and the whole world have to work together on that. So thank you, and I'd like to invite our, His Excellency the Ambassador Osama from African Union to share your perspective as both of you representing a large number of countries. Okay, Ambassador Osama, please.
CCG for organizing this, and I'm lucky to participate in many of these forums so far, because it seems that I have long lived here in China. I will just dwell on general issues regarding the governance, the global governance. I believe that the global governance is more concerned with challenges that a single nation is not able to handle. Some of the challenges that pose serious threats to communities are economic volatility, humanitarian crisis, climate change, military conflicts between and within states and nations. Therefore, handling these challenges need to have a collective global policies. Several global actors are currently emerging in the world, intending to offer solutions to the interdependent challenges, clash, and sometimes supplementing with already existing regimes that are created to address and solve these international challenges. However, it is proved over time that the current international institutions have failed to offer solutions to the current challenges that are facing the global governance. Additionally, the powers in modern system of governance are currently more diffused. The rising powers and emerging economies are developing alternative institutions for political and economic stability, instead of advocating for improvement of global institutions such as the UN Security Council, the Bretton Woods institutions, and others. Some of the alternatives which were proposed, projects like the New Development Bank and the Asian Infrastructure Bank, and others institutions which would like to avoid the problems which we face with the institutions which you already dealt with. This paradigm shift in the global governance is highly received and resonated with developing countries, because the traditional institutions which were created by the victorious powers after the Second World War have always dictated the direction of global governance for several decades until now. The current arrangement have been unable to satisfactorily address the development challenges such as to free humanity from poverty and hunger, to reduce global economic imbalances and inequalities, to foster inclusive economic growth extra. And this is why also the SDGs are not, at least for the developing countries, are not being implemented as required. Developing countries remain underrepresented in several key decision-making bodies. This explains why the endeavors by the emerging economies resonates as powerful voice for the developing countries. Having said that, and despite all these hurdles, global governance is inevitable for the survival of humanity. And unless the world unites and introduces changes to the negative impacts of globalization, will continue to have negative impacts on developing countries. Even through global governance may be ineffective and fragile in the way it responds to the current problems, the need for global governance is inevitable, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Osman. You're right. I think the global governance is really, in this fragmented world, is a huge challenge now. How we can really work together for this multipolar world probably is shaping. And I noticed that we just had this Group 77 had a big conference in Africa just last 2 days, and we hope that Global South can play more active role in the global governance. And now we'd like to also have invite all the ambassadors to talk. I just follow this country alphabetical order to start. I know the Belgian ambassador has something urgent, but then his deputy is here. Would like to hear your view.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here for the high quality of the speakers and the discussions, and for the little blue books, which are extremely useful whenever I go to meetings and receptions. Unfortunately, my ambassador couldn't be here today. He asked me to replace him and say some words, and he sends his regards. I would say that it's absolutely vital that we have these discussions and that we have them very regularly. You might have noticed that 2 weeks ago, our Prime Minister and Foreign Minister came to China. This is actually the first visit outside Belgium at the start of the Belgian presidency that we now hold for the next 6 months. We had the great honor of being received by the President himself, by the Prime Minister, and by the President of the National People's Congress. And we also had a separate meeting with Minister Wang Yi. And I must say, and I sat in those meetings, I was struck by how often we agreed and how little we disagreed. And of course, when we disagreed, it gets into the media. And there's a lot of attention paid to the disagreements, but I do think that the agreements are very, very, very many, but less talked about. 2024 is a very important year, and not only because Belgium has the presidency, but also because we have elections for about half the world population, including in Belgium and also in the EU. And that is going to change. And I remember from the last CCG event where I was, I think it was a rather pessimistic tone saying we can hope for in 24 is that the relationship doesn't get worse. But I think we should aim higher. And I think we should aim higher and try to improve them. Now, participating in those events with the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister, I was struck by how historical, psychological, and cultural factors basically lead to misunderstandings. Even in the very simple logistics, this happened as well. And sometimes, for example, if they take the Chinese approach of never promising something you can't deliver, which is very laudable, but also sometimes not the way I think we in the West see things, because often we set targets that help us aim for something, and maybe we won't achieve them, but at least we have a target and it motivates people. Whereas on the Chinese side, it's rather the opposite. Let's not set a target that is overambitious, and let's just communicate once we are nearly certain that we will achieve this. I think the two main points where we disagree, first of all, and that's not a surprise, is the war in Ukraine. I think on the Chinese side, they seriously underestimate how existential this is for us. Not only because, you might say the simple fact of the energy prices going up. No, it's far more serious than that. The EU itself is a peace project. This is 70 years without war. And now we have a war back on our continent. We clearly see where the fault lies. There is one aggressor and there is one country that has been invaded. But it's also fairly scary, I would say, for people in Western Europe, because changing borders by force could open Pandora's box. There are many borders within the EU, there are many borders in the world. If we accept that might is right and that the powerful can change those, then it's not going to stop there. A second and last element, I would say, is China's underestimation of itself. China often presents itself as a developing country, champion of the global south, and it is clearly the champion of the global south, and it has done a lot when it comes to development. At the same time, we're talking about a permanent member of the Security Council. And I do think China's power has grown in the last decades, and I think China's responsibility needs to grow equally. And I do think that it is important that China, in its new role, with its new power, engages more in global issues, both when it comes to things like climate change, as it comes to geopolitical crisis in the world. And therefore, I think that would be our message. Please do more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for a friend from Belgium. I know you're a Prime Minister at a very successful visit, and also I congratulate on your new opening of your embassy or residency, which I know has been constructed for some time. And absolutely, I think that dialogue and communication is vital. I mean, particularly during this difficult time. So I hope we will do more of that. Now we'll have Ambassador Hannes Hansson, His Excellency from Estonia. So a great country I just visited last year. Was thanks for Ambassador Hansson, and it's very impressive. And we hope you can share some of your view as well. Ambassador Hansson, please.
Thank you very much for this invitation, and thank you for CCG, Mabel and Henry, for setting up this format of good exchange. I find it rather difficult to be very optimistic when looking into the year that has just begun. But I was in a car driving here trying to figure out what very positive I could say. And in our bilateral Estonia-China relationship, I'd like to mention two amazing things that I, to be honest, only discovered last year. In 2007 or 8, and this is about the environment, in Estonia, a volunteer movement started called Cleanup Day, where volunteers would gather in an organized, nationally coordinated manner, and they started cleaning up waste from different parts of the country. On a Sunday, volunteer basis, friends, colleagues would jointly go together, do something good. Very quickly, this movement gained popularity and spread to our Scandinavian neighbors and Latvia, Lithuania. From there on, it grew bigger. It is now a movement where more than 180 countries participate. And in China, there is an NGO in Shanghai. They coordinated last year, they organized 250,000 people to participate in all the clean actions around China. Thousands and thousands of tons of waste and rubbish was collected. And it is only the beginning. I went to their annual conference in at the end of December, and their plans are super ambitious. So maybe I hope we can, as ambassadors, also participate at some point in this. And I'm so proud. All this originates actually back in my own country, Estonia. And the United Nations, Sid, you must hear, yeah, made it the World Cleanup Day. It's now an official UN day. I think it's 20th of September every year. So an annual sort of day where focus on environment that's the focus, environment and world. So that's really positive. I don't know how many of you have heard of Robotex. Robotex is a youth sort of technological challenge where kids of all ages build robots, and then they compete with the robots. In China, it again comes from Estonia. It is huge. This weekend, I'm going to open the Robotex Asia Games in Shanghai. 30,000 participants. And they do regional ones with 10,000 people. This one is 30,000. So we have some super good things that are happening bilaterally. At least they began in Estonia, and they now have really well taken root in China. So this is on a positive side. Now international affairs and challenges. And again, I say I wish I could be more optimistic. But in my view, I think we are really navigating one of the most complex and difficult periods in history at the moment. And geopolitical tensions are very high, and I think on the increase. There are, of course, several very important political events taking place this year, which could, of course, add to the current level of tensions. The adverse effects that were already referred to, such as food insecurity or disruptions in the energy security, they really affect almost everyone globally. And I have a feeling that sort of yesterday's bad news are just overtaken by today's bad news, but issues are often, or they remain unresolved, and justice is not, or at least has not yet been achieved. And of course, you know that I'll be talking about Russia's war of aggression on Ukraine. And I echo with the previous speaker that I don't think in our host country the decision-making levels really appreciate the seriousness of how we view in Europe, but also in many other parts of the world, this issue. And it's not a secret. We don't see eye to eye on this issue. And of course, when we hear and read that China's relationship with the aggressor nation, Russia, is at its all historic height, of course, we must appreciate how seriously it will continue to affect adversely our relationship until, of course, these issues are settled, meaning that Ukraine has regained its territorial integrity and those responsible for war crimes are brought to justice. And I'm also from a very small country, and for us, the issue of international law is existential. It must prevail, and it must be proactively upheld. I don't know how many of you have heard, but in Estonia, the government in December last year actually decided to commit at least 0.25% of GDP to support Ukraine in coming years militarily alone. We have a lot of other projects in Ukraine, but we do hope that other nations will join us. It's actually, if you calculate, a very small amount to pay if we collectively did it, and we would help Ukraine to win this. So I'm afraid this issue will continue to affect the relationship with China also until the aggression ends. And we have expressed this issue, this view on so countless occasions when meeting our Chinese counterparts at every level, meaning also the highest possible level. And quite a bit of trust has been lost in this process, unfortunately, which will take time to rebuild. We support and are fully behind President Zelensky's 10-point peace plan. And so I hope that looking into the future that more countries are coming to see that this is really the only way to resolve the current current situation. And has been already mentioned before, of course, the new really serious conflict happening in taking place or only developing in the Middle East also, of course, cannot be discounted. It has potential to flare even further. So I see a lot of polarization, which is not really good for the future. But our job as a diplomat and also, you know, like think tanks like this one are, of course, supremely important as venues where we can express these views and also publish these views. So I want to thank the organizers again. And in Estonia, we have a saying, sometimes it must get worse before it gets better. So I hope that the worst is soon there and soon it will get better. So Happy New Year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hannes. I think we have probably reached the bottom, but I think China is taking some active role. They have China has appointed an envoy for the Russian-Ukraine conflict, and President Xi actually called Zelensky. So we hope that you know, China is probably in a better position to participate more in the future. Anyway, we will continue. But I think given the time, you know, we have a big reception downwards. We will have many people coming, people from U.S. Embassy, Canada, and a lot of other embassy will come. But so maybe we're 3, 4, not more than 5. Ambassador from Iceland, and His Excellency Espen, you know, your turn, please.
Thank you, Henry, and thank you, Mabel, again for this initiative and the invitation. And I'll try to stick to the limited time. Indeed, we are living bleak and difficult times, and the outlook is not very good. I would tend to share many of the views and points raised by my colleague from Estonia, but I'm not going to go in this direction, that direction this time. Because exactly in circumstances like this, there's a very important also that we seize every opportunity for cooperation and dialogue to keep things going on. And I would like to mention in that context the opportunity that I think that COP28 gave for both bilateral and multilateral cooperation with China. Keep in mind that China is not only the largest emitter of carbon dioxide in the world, emitting 11.5 billion tons a year, but also as the largest emitter and also the second largest economy, it offers a greatest opportunity of emissions reductions. And the outcome of the COP28 stressing emissions reductions through tripling of renewable energy and development of carbon capture technologies offers an opportunity for us to work together, especially on the business level, industry level, and technological level. This is somewhere where we need to go. In my little chapter in the book, I speak about a cooperation that we've been having between China and Iceland, both on renewables, geothermal in particular, and on carbon capture use and storage. That chapter is to say that it doesn't make any difference what your size is as a country, you can still have an industry that can work with China in assisting China and assisting the world in reducing the emissions. So that is the opportunity that I want to put to the floor, that is seen in the coming future. In this bleak world, we still have to move on, and we still have to deal with the climate issue. And I think industrial cooperation is very important in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. I think you have a really excellent managing the time. Thank you. Absolutely. I agree with you. I think that climate poses the biggest threat to the humankind, and we have to really all work together, and China, EU, US, and whole world. Absolutely. The three largest economy has to work together. And I think good news is now China has the renewable energy surpassed the fossil energy by 50% already. You know, half of the energy in China now is renewable. So hopefully they can continue that path and get less on the fossil and other energy sources. I mean, certainly they're going to have to work together. I mean, COP28 has achieved some objective. We will continue to work on that. Now, next, I would like to invite our friend from Indonesia, and also your ambassador has a great contributor. So, Mr. Perulian Selahi, Deputy Head of the Mission Embassy of Indonesia. Your turn, please.
Thank you. Distinguished ambassadors and participants, of course, I would like to also extend my sincere gratitude to the CCG for the invitation extended to me. And of course, my ambassador is currently unable to attend. He sends his regards. The theme of this forum today, China and Global Cooperation in 2024, indeed is very relevant and timely, especially I understand that we are celebrating the official listing of the Lunar New Year as a United Nations floating holiday in its calendars of conferences and meetings. So this only shows how China is also becoming has a central role in the global perspective. For Indonesia, of course, the Chinese New Year is also observed as a public holiday. And on this, I would like to I remember last year, our religious affairs minister quoted a section from the Confucian classic, The Great Learning, which reads, "To govern the state, one must first harmonize the family." I think this is a teaching that may have laid the foundation for the currently famous Chinese saying, educate oneself, harmonize the family, the country, and make peace in the world. Having said that, I think few of us would disagree with the opinion that a strong and friendly China will bring positive impact to the region and to the world. With its respective economic strength, I think China's commitment to common development has the potential to not only create a sound international environment, which we have already discussed the importance of it with its own modernization, but also to make important contribution to human progress. Now, we would like to appreciate the leadership of China for their continued efforts towards a peaceful coexistence with all nations and providing opportunities of upliftment and common development for all. Now, as an emerging economy ourselves, Indonesia places a considerable emphasis on self-reliance and on its right to its own development paths. Thus, we are seeking to identify a distinctive path to modernization that is innovative, ecological, spiritually rich, and equitable, and that enriches the lives of all our people. And this is where we are pleased that economic diplomacy is now at the heart of Indonesia's foreign policy. So going forward, Indonesia and China should continue to join hands to promote economic development for our own countries and our region as a whole. At the same time, I think we should explore ways to coordinate our international strategies to deepen practical cooperation in other realms. This is exactly why Southeast Asian leaders had in mind when they attended last October the Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation. Their attendance, our attendance as Southeast Asian leaders at that event is due to our shared confidence that the BRI will continue to promote international cooperation boost global economic growth and accelerate implementation of the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development. I think this confidence is also reflected by the UN Secretary Mr. Antonio Guterres' remarks in the forum last year, where he urged that we can turn the infrastructure emergency into an infrastructure opportunity, supercharge the SDGs, and deliver hope and progress for billions of people and the planet we share. Now, lastly, like many other developing countries, excellencies in the region, Indonesia is still a participant of the BRI and will continue to support efforts to ensure synergy between BRI projects and ASEAN development plans. And therefore, maybe a few points from us. I would like to suggest that think tanks in China, including, of course, CCG here, would help promote the BRI as a whole by conducting further extensive studies together with think tanks from other countries to help establish the BRI as a good economic initiative. And our friends in Beijing would also disseminate more information to participating countries so that they could better understand the BRI as a whole, in its entirety or in its appropriate context and perspective, while participating countries also create efforts to improve each of their own information provision to keep the public in the loop on the synergy between BRI projects and each of their prospective development. If we could maintain such efforts in 2024, it will eventually allow more countries to participate in the building of a community of what's called a shared future for mankind. I think that's from us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Salahi. Very good comment. I think absolutely. I mean, you know, we need to find the consensus. I mean, the world now, we have the climate is a big consensus, but then infrastructure probably gap is another consensus. The BI is trying to fill a part of that. I'm very pleased to hear you mention about this. And I know that Bangkok to Jakarta speed railway just opened, cutting from 4 hours to 40 minutes, which is a good example. And I think this BI can work with B3W, EU Global Gateway. I mean, let's get infrastructure all together as something common ground to work with. So thank you for your comment. And now I would like to invite our friend Ambassador from Jordan. You know that His Excellency Hussein Hosseini. Your turn, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Henry, again, and to you and to Mabel. And let me also congratulate you on the achievement that you are doing through this wonderful platform. The CCG is becoming now one of the most important think tanks, as I see it in China, providing such a wonderful platform, not only to understand China, but also to exchange views, something we appreciate very much from our community. And we appreciate very much your openness also to provide this platform for us to discuss. Having said that, I was looking at the questions put to us on this for our roundtable today. I'll tell you frankly that I wish I do have that luxury of reflecting on these issues, which I would love very much to talk about relaxedly, and I have so many views on these issues. But I'm coming from the heart of the Middle East, where next to our border is a genocide is going on for more than 100 years now, taking the lives of a child every 10 minutes and killing more than 26,000 so far in our region, under the eyes of the international community and the global governance we are talking about here today. And here, what I would like to say is that 70 years since the establishment of the world governance in terms of the United Nations and all those institutions and so on, so many generations have been grown and brought up since then. But unfortunately, the world is still living under this shadow of this same World War II. The world is still moving in the same mentality of the World War II and even before the World War II. And it seems that we are bound to move on for the future under the same pretext as well. It's unfortunate that when we are having this genocide been taking place for more than 100 years, and the international community could not even stand and say enough is enough. And even if somebody did, nobody hears, because those who have the power to stop this genocide are not able to do it. They don't want to do it. They are still living in the same pretext of the 45 or the new global order. I'm sorry to say that with all this mentality that has been arising since the end of last year, we have for many years, we have been warning that there is no peace in this world unless there is a peace in the Middle East. This is not a slogan, this is a reality. And we are talking about it because we know that what is bringing the problem in the Middle East is a deep-rooted, brutal mentality that has been implanted in the global governance, and it will continue to be like this until this problem in the Middle East is solved. It's as simple as that. And if we do not solve it and we keep it like this, can you imagine the world for the last 3 months that has been watching a genocide going on? What do you expect from this world in the coming years and centuries? What do you expect? There is not a single change that can give hope that there is really a future, a better future, because we are still living in the shadow of this mentality, a brutal mentality, fascist mentality that is accepting a genocide, killing more than 11,000 children in 3 months, more than any time in the history it happened, and yet nobody is willing to stop it. We had a problem even in taking it to the United Nations, how many vetoes we have and how many problems to have a resolution that did not even have the chance to be implemented. What are we talking about? We are talking about a world that we are living in that is fluctuating between a moral dysfunction and a moral bankruptcy. This is what we are facing, and this is what we are having today. And what do we expect from a world, from a governance, from a world governance that is acting with this moral bankruptcy? What do we expect? A better future for our children? I'm sorry to say no. More than 30 years you've been talking about the climate change. So many agreements for the climate change. Did we get better? Why? Because it's the same mentality. It's the brutal mentality of the pre-world order that is running our daily life, and it will continue. There is not a real change. There is not a real reform in our global governance that could lead to a better future for our future. I'm sorry to say that, but this is the reality. This is where I'm coming from, the Middle East. For 70 years, we are living this problem, this genocide taking place, this occupation going on, this dehumanization of people. And yesterday, a new foreign minister is coming and suggesting simply in the European Council that we want to create an artificial island in the sea and put the Palestinian into it. What brutality is this? What fascism is this? What Nazism is this? And the world is saying nothing about it. And the world is standing silent on all of this is happening. What do we expect in the global governance to do for our future generation and for our children? Let's be frank. We need to stand up, and we need to stand up for principles, for humanity. We need to say, stop, enough is enough. We have to live up for our principles, for our promises for ourselves, that we should provide a better future for our children. Without this, we cannot change, and the world will continue to be controlled and living under the shadow of these fascists and these radical and these right wings and these orthodox ideology that is bringing nothing but misery to all. I'm sorry I took much of that, but we are looking up for really voices of wisdom who could really make some change. I'm encouraged to say that China does have a role and does have a leading role in standing up in that direction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Huhazi. Actually, you have made a very appealing case here, and I think that it's really it's got world nerves, and of course the whole world is really paying a lot of attention. I think UN, of course, other countries, China, all continue to look at this issue very urgently. I actually published article in South China Morning Post about 10 days ago. I was calling China to also be more active. I think Minister Wang Yi has said we should have a high-level peace summit for the issue. I really agree. I think that's important. This is very urgent. We cannot wait any longer. So thank you for sharing your view. Now, next, we had an ambassador of New Zealand actually contributing one of the 2 books. So he has sent his representative, and Mr. Amaro Tarika. So your turn, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the CCG for hosting today's important event. My name is Aramiro Tairakana. I'm the Economic Counselor at the New Zealand Embassy here in Beijing. I bring the greetings of my Ambassador Graham Morton, who's looking forward to participating in your event this evening, happening very soon, and also, of course, the greetings of our former Ambassador Claire Fernley, who was very happy to contribute a chapter to the previous edition of the book, which we're happy to see today, now published in Mandarin. New Zealand, of course, shares grave concern about the, to quote my own foreign minister, the vortex of global instability that's taking place in the world. But every much as we are concerned, we remain committed to working with partners around the world, committed to multilateralism. We need to invest more in cooperation internationally. We live by the principles that our shared interests can only be secured through global rules and norms that advance our values. These rules and norms need to treat all states and indeed all individuals equally and fairly. And our disputes need to be able to be settled peacefully and in a manner that has a level playing field. But in the short time we have available, and not to run over points that my colleagues here have already made, I'll focus on the question at hand of the year ahead and New Zealand's relationship with China. So it is 1 year now since New Zealanders and Chinese nationals were able to visit each other's country again following the removal of COVID border restrictions. And we can certainly say that our 2 countries have now reconnected. This connection has been underpinned by air services. Air New Zealand flies now every day to Shanghai, and we're pleased that 4 Chinese airlines fly from 6 Chinese cities to New Zealand as well. At the political level, we're pleased to have marked this reconnection with visits to China by our foreign minister last March and our prime minister, who visited last June, accompanied by a trade and an indigenous Maori performing arts delegation. Our two-way trade does continue to recover from the impacts of COVID, but China remains New Zealand's top trading partner with two-way goods and services trade now worth more than 38 billion New Zealand dollars. We held a general election last October, and this was followed by the formation of a new government in November. But of course, across governments, our relationship with China remains one of our most significant, our most complex, and our most wide-ranging. China benefits from the products and services that New Zealand offers, and New Zealand benefits in return from the products and services that China offers. And we are focused on ensuring that we have a resilient relationship that improves well-being and economic well-being in both of our countries. So in 2024 and beyond, we look forward to continuing to cooperate in areas of shared interest. And for us in particular, we look forward to continuing to focus on our trading relationship, on agricultural cooperation, and of course, the important subject of climate change that we've discussed at length already today. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rakana. Yeah, no, absolutely good news. I mean, I didn't know New Zealand, we have 6 flights and 6 cities, so that's enormous. I mean, we hope we can resume more flights to other continents as often, as frequent as to New Zealand. So it's great, and people-to-people exchange is vital. I think we need that. So now we will have another distinguished guest ambassador, Her Excellency Sina Budaset. I mean, I know you've been an old friend of CCG, and I know your Prime Minister is coming. Congratulations. And so maybe you can share your latest view on the global issue and bilateral issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henry, and also Mabel and friends from the CCG. It's an honor to be here today for the release of the 2 important books. So in my 3 or 4 minutes, I would like to make 3 separate points today. First, I am happy to have contributed to the book, The Future of China's Development and Globalization, Views from Ambassadors in China. My contribution, Norway creating a system of economic governance tailored to benefit all, provides an overview of the financial model of the Norwegian state. The chapter emphasizes the importance of trust in public institutions, the need to create value before we can share, the importance of high degree of participation in the labor force, for example, also facilitated by family-friendly policies, a tax system which focuses on redistribution of resources, and an education system which encourages innovation. For years, experts from Norway and China have exchanged views and experiences of some of these topics. And with the economic headwinds that are facing us and the need for structural reforms that we see in many countries, including Norway and China, I am therefore certain that both countries have much to gain in continuing such exchanges. Secondly, many have touched and spoken well about the global situation. As we are entering 2024, we are facing a serious international situation. I would like to thank Sid for mentioning that there are 70 conflicts going on in the world today. This is worth reminding us all of. Of course, also we see that the Russian attacks on Ukraine continue. And also, as our Jordanian colleague just expressed, the pain that is experienced in the Middle East these days. A humanitarian catastrophe is unfolding in Gaza, and we continue to call for a humanitarian ceasefire. We see that tensions in the Middle East remain high. For Norway, there is no alternative to an international order based on multilateralism and international law. In fact, this is in the interest of all states. Norway stands ready to cooperate both with China and other actors in peace and reconciliation efforts where we have common interests. 3, Henry, at an earlier session here, you encouraged ambassadors to be to come forward with very concrete and practical suggestions to China. At the time, we were talking about issues that could facilitate foreigners' lives in China during the pandemic period and when we had many COVID restrictions. Today, I would like to make a similar, but in a similar fashion, also a very practical suggestion. Of course, we are very happy to see that increased business travel and people-to-people exchanges have increased. We are also happy to see that China has facilitated some incoming travelers by extending visa-free policies to even more countries, and we would suggest that this is continued. But my very concrete suggestion today is that as the number of international visitors, including short-term visitors, come to China, we also see that all the Chinese apps that you need to be in this country, Alipay, WeChat, Didi, all these apps that you need to have your life functioning is a real hindrance for international tourists coming in who will stay here only for a short time, and also even for foreigners who are staying here for a longer time. So I would very much like to encourage the tech companies and China to make sure that all these apps become more user-friendly, that they are in English, that they support foreign credit cards, that it is that they are easily that you can communicate with them as an individual, as a foreign visitor, because at the moment these apps are like a barrier for foreign visitors coming into to China. So this should be a low-hanging fruit, and if there are some good changes made to these kind of digital solutions, I'm sure also that China could be perceived as a country that is more willing to welcome foreign visitors. So thank you again, Henry and Mabel and all colleagues from CCG for hosting this event. And at the end, I would like to stress that that 2024 marks the 70th anniversary for bilateral relations between Norway and China. So we therefore look forward to a very busy and rewarding year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Sina, for your wonderful remarks. And absolutely, I think that visa, lifting visa restriction is great. I mean, China has already lifted 11 countries visa free to come to China, and I know that Norway has been also granted 144. Now there has been that has been that's right. That's right. You have also got that as well. Yeah, also on the apps, I think we also worked with Tencent. We had a number of international young leaders, our global young leader dialogue, which Mabel was doing. Try them at different places, and then they made a documentary, and that internally, I think, pushed for some apps to open for foreign credit card. But absolutely, we need to do more, and we should continue to facilitate. I'm even thinking, maybe in the 5-star hotels, we should open let's not use VPN. We can actually access. If we can watch CNN in a 5-star hotel, why can't we watch internet freely? So something can be, gradually improving, I hope. That's our wish.
Proposes for CPPCC meeting minutes for two sessions these days. I should be in the two sessions, but I'm here for getting interviews and got views from all the ambassadors. This is actually the same to your opinion. I already proposed that open that channel for the foreign visitors for the digital apps and the credit card, the post machines for international credit card receipt. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Good. So we'll have our next participant. I know that we have Mr. Bailey Mohammed Chaudhry. He represents he's the deputy head of the mission, Embassy of Pakistan. I know your ambassador wasn't able to, but he contributed. Would you say something? Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Henry and Dr. Mabel. It's really a pleasure to be part of this very enlightening conversation. As you said, my ambassador is away. Right now he's in Pakistan, and he asked me to represent him at this gathering, given our special relationship with CCG. And I must commend you and your team for arranging this wonderful conversation. You have rightly mentioned that our previous ambassador, Ambassador Moin al-Haq, contributed a piece to this book, and I'm really happy and feel proud of the fact that his piece has been given the opening place in the book. It's the very first chapter in this book, and it really captures the essence of China-Pakistan relations. If you go through this chapter, this will tell you the opportunities which lie ahead in terms of not only bilateral cooperation between China and Pakistan, what can be explored in terms of global governance. I'll just pick up one excerpt from this essay written by my ambassador. He talks about that he was moved by the sentiments of love and affection in China. Now, this is something which might appear very cliche, but as a diplomat from Pakistan, when you come to China, For me, it's been only a few months. And what I have felt is that the relationship between the two countries based on geopolitical calculations. It is also the sentiments which are involved. It's the mutual respect of equality between the two countries. Now, it's the practical manifestation of this mutual respect and equality which an individual or a diplomat feels when he arrives in Pakistan, in China, from Pakistan. Now, when we talk of equality and mutual respect, now this is the fundamental component or ingredient for developing or making an equal world. As there has been conversation about reforming the United Nations, about strengthening the United Nations-led global order. Now, this is one area in which Pakistan and China have convergence of interests as well, that there should be a UN-led global architecture of governance. Now, respect for UN Charter, respect for the principle and purposes of UN Charter should be at the heart of multilateral cooperation. What we are seeing in Gaza, in occupied territories, this is something because of the fact that Israel has decided, has been doing so for so many decades to ride a roughshod over the Charter of the United Nations. And we share the sentiments of Ambassador from Jordan. It is really heart-wrenching for us to witness every day the loss of Palestinian lives. And as I said, China, we have seen China's peaceful rise. Today, China also epitomizes peace. China has become a symbol of peace as well. What we have seen, the rapprochement in the Middle East, which was brokered by China. China played a very decisive role in brokering that rapprochement. We can draw lessons from there. China has a role to play in international governance, in ensuring peace. It is a brand for peace. It should make sure, this is my humble suggestion, that it rises up to the occasion. And as you said, this is very great news that Foreign Minister Wang Yi has announced an initiative. So we are looking forward to that. Just a few points. I won't exceed my time limit. On financial institutions, the distinguished ambassador from African Union has talked about the gaps in international governance. I think it is extremely important to have a reform of international financial institutions. This is another area on which we believe both Pakistan and China have convergence of views. It is extremely important to ensure equity and inclusiveness in these financial institutions. And then on the mobility between countries, just final point, and I will finish. The Prime Minister of Pakistan visited China a few months ago, and we decided to open our land border, Punjab-Sost, making it an all-weather route. It's extremely challenging because of logistic reasons, but we have made a resounding political commitment to do that in the near future. We have already taken steps towards that end. Because it is extremely important that people visit each other and get the first-hand experience of each other's values, cultures, and then identify common points to have that concept of President Xi about building a community of shared prosperity, of shared shared peace. This can be done only by opening the borders. What we did with China last year, to commemorate the year of tourism. And we found out just through this initiative that there is so much common between the ancient civilization of China and the ancient Gandhara civilization, which existed in the areas now which constitute Pakistan. And we were able to showcase the ancient Silk Road civilization. And we found out that we have so much in common in terms of ancient heritage that we, in our books, we have not been able to express them. So I think opening the borders for China, I think it is going to be a win-win for all sides. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I think that opening borders is gradually happening. Actually, the National Immigration Administration, recently announced that if you haven't got time to do the visa, you just come to the entry point with a letter of invitation, friends, organizations, and they will process. And then you can come to China without a visa, actually. Anybody who has a visa in China can actually extend your visa if a visa is issued by the embassy outside China. But then when you come in, you have only 15 days, whatever. You can extend your visa with the local administration of immigration. And also, finally, China opened many airports. All the major 12, 11, or 15 airports, if you come 24 hours to transfer, all visa free. You don't need a visa. So I think China is really realized that unilaterally China can do that. I mean, that's good for the world and good for the, as you said, good relations. And as China sees a surge of visitors since they opened for the European 5 countries and now added to Ireland and Switzerland. So we hope that it would be do more with all the other countries. Now, my friend from Portuguese ambassador, from Portuguese ambassador Nascimento. I mean, you were at my event in Macau. I mean, last year at Global Talent Conference. I mean, thank you for going there. So we'd like to hear from you.
Yes, thank you very much, Henry, and thank you very much. Let me first of all congratulate yourself and Mabel and all the CCG team for organizing this event. Well, the first thing I would like to speak is about, but I'm not going further to that because of the sake of the time, about the role of the think tanks. I think these institutions are of extreme importance in terms of, as George Toledo put it, or to allow us to put it clear ideas and to exchange openly ideas and suggestions. That's, I believe, part of our endeavor as diplomats is to speak and to listen and to try to understand. And this brings me to another point, which is the importance of the peoples-to-peoples relation exchanges. I believe that the last half-century trends show us that globalization was imposing itself. But on the other hand, as the world became small, it became more interdependent, but also more complex. And there is a lot of situations that we are now seeing arising and exploding in our own hands, like those were presented and referred by our colleague from Estonia or by the ambassador of Jordan, the wars in Ukraine and in Gaza. Which are the consequences of sometimes huge misunderstandings and mostly inaction in the past. So this brings me to the point where people and I speak not about only institutions, but common people as to get together, as to meet, as to know each other, as to understand differences and cultures. And in order to overcome this, we have to, of course, going further to this in this vein of facilitation of contacts that you mentioned, and also our Pakistani colleague mentioned in terms of borders and frontiers and visas facilitation. But further to that, we have to go and to fight the idea that we do not share a common destiny, because we do share a common destiny. And climate change is there to prove it. Drought is there to prove it. Energy scarcity is there to prove it. the need for investment in infrastructures, as it was referred by our Indonesian colleague, is there to prove it. So there is a long way that we have to take together. And in this sense, to conclude, what I believe it's absolutely essential not to believe in fairy tales that say us that we can go freely when separate from the others. It's time, in my humble opinion, to end with this idea of North-South divide and the West against the rest, or vice versa. There is no place for this kind of fairy tales, because the winners or the losers are going to be all of us. And in this sense, my appeal and my suggestion is that we go through what can increase people-to-people exchanges, mutual cultural knowledge, put dialogue ahead, because at the end, dialogue is always better than confrontation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your excellent point. And absolutely, I think we have to really cut short this North-South divide. It's really a great idea. I actually published an article in the Global Time. I suggest China should do more to also minimize the South and North gap, because China has experience of a largely developing country, but also have experience of developed area now. So it knows the story of both sides, and it should really be a bit bridge on that too. So I noticed Premier Li Qiang spoke at the Davos, talk about 5 proposals. One of the proposals, China playing more role in bridging, cooperating with South, North, and Global South. So thank you for the ideas. Now I'd like to invite our CCG friend and Her Excellency Lenka Sadolink, Ambassador from Slovenia. I mean, beautiful country. I have to say, I've been there at the invitation ambassador to the Black Strategic Forum, which is a great forum. I didn't realize, the forum was so impactful and influential, including many ambassadors, ministers from all the countries. Prime Minister, Ambassador Wu Hongbo was there from China, but actually he's coming here tonight. Ambassador Wu Hailong, DDJ from American Department of FA, and there's many other coming tonight also. So I'd like to hear from you, Ambassador from Slovenia.
Thank you, Henry, and thank you to the CCG for the great work that you are doing here in putting this in conversation with different strands of the Chinese society. I would like to make a short intervention on one of the questions that you put in your background paper, and namely looking ahead what opportunities in global governance cooperation can be identified in 2024, likely an epic year. 2024 might indeed be an epic year, hopefully not for the 70 conflicts to continue this year as well, and not just for extraordinary number of elections. Half of the world's population is going to go to the voting booths this year, but also for the possibilities that the summit of the future ahead of us this September presents to the global community. SEAT has already introduced the summit of the future at the beginning of the conversation. So I would like to just speak about 3 points that the 2024 summit of the future should address, and at the same time, they are also among the priorities of the Slovenian UN Security Council membership in 2024-2025. Those points are human rights, emphasis on gender, climate security, and inclusive multilateral system. Looking back to the last year, the year of conflict, one should insist that the international law, international humanitarian law, and human rights law, it's applicable to all without any distinction. So that would be the first, and somehow to reaffirm the progress that has been already achieved as a global community after the adoption of 70 years ago of the UN Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And, very often one hears that one always needs to consider unique circumstances and histories. I do agree with that. That needs to be taken into account. But at the same time, we need to insist on the universal principles that the global community already agreed to. And that seems that sometimes it's put under question mark. When we are, it's disheartening what is happening and who are among the main victims in Gaza. It proves again and again that the armed conflicts, the main victims are civilians, women and children. And here, but frankly, when we are speaking about women and the status of women, not in the armed conflict, one in the peaceful times, one can also observe marginalization, inequality, and exclusion. And really, concrete measures needs to be taken to advance gender equality, not only in our homes and our home countries, but also in our UN home, which faces the unusual fact that that only 4 presidents of the General Assembly in its almost 80 years history were women. So also UN should walk the talk and take concrete measures to advance equality in all of its governance structures. Secondly, global governance needs to continue to address the planetary crisis of climate change and biodiversity loss. One of the rare advances in human rights fora was actually the adoption of the right to clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. Among the 6 countries is also Switzerland. It was Switzerland, Costa Rica, Maldives, Morocco, and Slovenia that we have proposed that to the UN General Assembly, and that was adopted. And as a member of UN Security Council, Slovenia is also advocates that the climate security should be or could be part of the Security Council deliberations and agenda. Third point, no opportunities for global progress can be achieved without a strong, effective, inclusive multilateral system. As it looks like we all agree, whenever we are talking, we all are speaking the same. But I would say something that maybe one should, because I'm coming from a small country. Small countries by definition are for the effective multilateral system, simply because that multilateral system and equality among the members is protecting us. So I would suggest, if we are speaking about practical suggestions, that the major countries, big countries, act as the smaller countries need to. Maybe just not to take too much time, just one more emphasis. We were speaking about the divisions, about the inequalities. What Slovenia is also advocating, that there is no peace without sustainable development in all fields, and no sustainable development without a peace. And let me end with our slogan that, you know how it is with slogans. They might, sometimes they work, or sometimes they remain slogans. So the Slovenian UN Security Council membership is under the slogan, building trust, securing future. And here I think that without building trust, there is no future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. Your excellent point. I mean, absolutely, Slovenia is now the Security Council member. You're proposing that climate security, that's an excellent concept, and we need to really pursue at the UN for that. So thank you for a great speech. Now, another great friend from CCG, His Excellency Rafael de Clare, Ambassador from Spain. I know you've been serving here for quite a number of years, and we're very sad to see you leave. I'm sure today with all the ambassadors, This is probably one of the few last event you're attending, but we really had a great friendship with you, and we're really going to miss you. I mean, if you leave, and we hope to come back again. So, Ambassador from Spain, your idea, please.
Thank you very much, Henry. Yes, I have been here for over 5 years, and I remember how China was before COVID and how things changed with COVID. What distance was created between China and the rest of the world as a result of COVID. And this was not only, of course, the consequence of the restrictions, but also of some political issues which happened. And in this context, the CCG has done a great job of keeping communication open, of giving a space for open discussion, as Jorge Toledo said before, of promoting exchanges, debates, and these books that you are publishing. And I have the honor to have contributed to the 2 editions. And in this last edition, I tried to analyze, to the extent it was possible, some of these issues which have contributed to create distance between China and Europe, in particular, Spain and Europe. And let me just point out 3 of them. One of them is the imbalance in trade. Trade has become a political issue in Europe. Trade discussions are political discussions. And there is a strong desire in Europe to redress this situation. In the case of Spain, for instance, we have globally a balanced trade structure with the whole world. With China, we buy 6 times more than what we sell. And this is not because our products are not competitive, but because there are many barriers to the entrance to the Chinese market. So in this case, what we expect is concrete measures, not just nice words. We have had a lot of nice words, but very few concrete measures. So this has created a certain distance between China and Europe. The second issue, of course, is Ukraine. As Hannes said, I don't think in China there is a clear awareness of how existential this issue is for Europe. We have been asking the Chinese to exercise their influence to try to stop this war of aggression, but with very limited effect. But China, is not any country. It's a country with a very special relationship with Russia. It's a superpower, and it is a permanent member of the Security Council. So what we ask from China is not just to do this or that, but to face its responsibilities as a superpower, to understand that it is not enough to say nice things. A superpower has to act, has to do more, as our Belgian colleague said before. A superpower has a lot of power, but also a lot of responsibility for the global peace and the global balance. And that applies also to Gaza. And I couldn't agree more with the unsustainability of the situation in Gaza. Of course, the terrorist attacks of Hamas are absolutely despicable. Hamas has to release all the hostages, but it is not acceptable. The number of civilian casualties is totally unacceptable. And international humanitarian law has to be respected. So we have to, all of us have to do whatever we can in order to stop this situation, including China. So China is, in a way, perceived sometimes as sitting on the fence, saying nice things and doing very little. And this applies to Ukraine, and applies to Gaza, and applies to other conflicts. China has responsibilities because it has a lot of power. And the last issue I wanted to raise was human rights. We have very different. This is also the issue I raised in the book. We have very different positions on human rights, and sometimes our dialogue on human rights is a dialogue of the deaf, which is very regrettable. But human rights in the end has to do with defending the weak against possible abuse from the strong. And this is a proposition with which nobody can disagree. At the same time, China has done a lot of good things on human rights. For instance, eliminating poverty for hundreds of millions of people. So China should be less defensive in the way they discuss human rights, and more willing to try to find common ground with others who have maybe different views. We are not going to agree on everything, but we could do something more maybe than just, sometimes our dialogue on human rights consists of we raising issues and the Chinese reading papers and no significant engagement. This is not good for the image of China. And frankly, if Europe is the champion of human rights, it's because we have been one of the greatest violators of human rights in our history. Only in 1945, we had to face our miseries, look ourselves into the mirror and think, Nazism was born here. Stalinism was born here. We have to do something about it. So we changed, and it has worked for us. So we're sure that it can work also for others. And we understand others come from different backgrounds. We are not going to agree on everything, but it should be possible to try to find common ground, to try to engage. And about these issues, I wrote my piece, and the piece was completely accepted, and all these ideas were included in my piece. So I think this is something extraordinary for a Chinese publication, and I want to thank you very much for that, and to commend you to continue with this very good work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Descala. Excellent point. Absolutely, I think you raised those issues. I think China probably is doing its best, but still, there's more could be done, and I think we need more dialogue, more communications, and absolutely with the UN. I mean, I remember China proposed that UN resolution while China was the rotating chair, was vetoed by one country and couldn't pass. So. But certainly there should be more continued efforts on that, and I think China has done the Saudi and Iranian deal, and which there's a lot of hope that they could, if the both Palestinian leaders and Israeli leaders visited China, there probably could be no conflict if they have made that trip as was speculated. Anyway, I appreciate, and also I think on the human right, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of issues there, but the UN 2030 agenda, 17 criteria, SDG, which is agreed by 193 countries, could be served as some benchmark for human rights as well. So there's more work can be done there. So thank you again for your comments there. Now, we'll have 10 minutes, 20 minutes left. We would like to hear from our next ambassador, His Excellency Per Augustin, Ambassador of Sweden to China. You've been here not too long, I know that, but you've been very active, so I'd like to hear from you.
Xie, thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation. It's great to be here. I look forward to collaborating a lot with you in the coming years. My predecessor, Helena, contributed to the book, and I'm happy that you got to meet her also quite recently. Many wise things have already been said on the most important subjects. As we look ahead into this new year, it's clear that we can see many challenges, very serious challenges and rising tensions all over. Basic norms such as the rule of law, respect for human rights and free trade are under increased pressure. The same applies to the rules-based international order established after the Second World War, as we see in Europe with Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, which has already been touched upon. As has the tragic and extremely serious developments in the Middle East mentioned by colleagues right before. So I will not go further into that now, but on opportunities and challenges in cooperating with China, we are linked. We are linked in so many ways. Given the interdependencies, economic and otherwise, the numerous current challenges that we are facing together, that we need to deal with together. China is an integrated part of the global economy and an indispensable part of the solution to many of those issues and problems. Cooperation is needed to fight climate change, improve biodiversity, global health, and to deal with disarmament, conflict resolution, and numerous other issues of mutual concern. More than ever, today, we need dialogue, diplomacy, trust, and transparency. If we don't work together, the world will become an even more dangerous place for all of us. It's a two-way street, and we expect China to engage on substance. People-to-people contacts have been mentioned. Personal contacts between our societies help bring us closer and should be deepened. I had a concrete suggestion here, but my Norwegian colleague beat me. So it's a Norwegian suggestion that I would just simply like to support, and I understand others have the same idea. You know, we are in some kind of an undesirable situation with some kind of a tech decoupling going on between China and other countries. Not only with apps, but also that we live in different internet universes in some strange way. I don't know the solutions to these issues, but I know that travelers, potential travelers from my country, talk about these things as obstacles. Yes, I would love to come and visit you, but what are these things with the apps and I don't know. So these are real issues that actually affect traveling. And hopefully there is some way to deal with them. Another thing when we talk about people-to-people contact and the importance there is that we must be careful and watchful not to create suspicions towards foreigners or fear of foreigners anywhere in the world. That should be avoided. It's not good. In fact, contacts and interactions with foreigners should be encouraged. I was always interested in meeting and speaking to foreigners, and I wish that everyone in the world is interested when they have a foreigner in front of them and want to engage and learn and talk to them. I always had that attitude. Now, between governments, contacts and dialogue is, of course, crucial, including at the political level. We must keep channels open and avoid unnecessary misunderstandings. Diplomacy and diplomats should be used as bridges, as you said, Henry, before. Dialogue is even more important when we disagree. We should not back away from dialogue because, no, it's too difficult, we are in disagreements. No, it's even more important in those situations. And finally, openness and transparency, generally speaking, in relations as well as in societies, help to build trust. The more open and transparent we are, I think, the better. So these are my reflections, and if we do some of the things right, I hope that we will be able to take advantage of the opportunities that we still have and deal with the challenges as constructively as we can. So I wish everyone a very happy Year of the Dragon and look forward to future contacts with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Augustin. Great comments. I think, absolutely, I think the apps you have mentioned and also mentioned by Ambassador from Norway, it's got attention. We'll write a summary of all your recommendations we send to all the relevant authorities for your great recommendations. I think that needs to be improved again further, absolutely, for people to come, should feel at home. I mean, absolutely. President Xi even inviting 50 youngsters from US. I mean, if you come so many people with all those challenges, how can they cope with that? So absolutely necessary. So thanks for the great ideas. Now we have another good friend, Ambassador Jürgen Burry, Ambassador of Switzerland to China. I know I just come back from Davos. I mean, it's remarkable. And also Sweden wants to play more role now in those global affairs. Even they had a meeting on Ukraine in Davos. So absolutely, Switzerland has a really important role to play on the global. You sit together on the global stage now, and I say Davos becoming more and more multilateral. And so I'd like to hear from you, Ambassador from Switzerland.
You got it right this time. Thank you. Thank you, Henry. And of course, I want to thank CCG for the new book. And I'm, of course, very honored that I was invited to contribute, and I am even more honored to see with what brilliant writers and ambassadors I am in one book now, and that is certainly a highlight for me. You have mentioned Davos, and I think Davos shows that Switzerland has a very strong stand on international issues. The NSA meeting was the biggest so far, with 82 participating countries on Ukraine. And also on the other very burning issue, not the Ukraine conflict, the Gaza conflict, Switzerland is working towards a two-state solution and the release of the hostages. And Henry, that we don't only treat these topics in Davos or in Bern or in the UN, also us, we're currently on the SC, Security Council, but also in Beijing. And my last year ended with a visit of our special advisor for conflict settlement, and I was happy to be able to include a number of fellow ambassadors here and you, and also, of course, the Chinese ministries to talk about these conflicts. And we will start this year with the dialogue on UN affairs. And I think the topics in the UN Security Council are similar. But in my few minutes, which I will talk now, I want to focus on what is the core of the contribution in the book, and that is China-Switzerland relations. And these ties have been proven to be fruitful and stable, and have started this year with exchange between President Amherd, Swiss President this year, and Prime Minister Li Qiang last week. And Switzerland is having a strong stance in defending its interests and values, but we really cherish the open dialogue with China, and we offer China a possibility for cooperation and on bilateral and multilateral issues. In the book, we are mostly focusing on the future, but before focusing on the future, we have to see where we actually stand, what is the present. And there I must say that after the travel or COVID restrictions, however you want to call them, the bilateral relations were not just switched on like a light, but it took some time. And we are still working on rebuilding all the dialogues that we had with China. And it's taking us time to reconnect administrations, to reconnect people who are in charge of topics, but we're confident that we will be able to do that and really establish the key dialogues, very important for Switzerland, and also somehow a facilitator for other activities was that we had an interesting human rights dialogue with China. And the key topic is prison management. I hope we will be able to go on with this. But now in the focus are the strategic innovation dialogue. That's our dialogue between Ministries of Foreign Affairs, the Joint Economic Committee, and they are all to be scheduled and held. And that shows, of course, that trade engagement is a very important aspect of our relations with China. These trade relations will just had an interesting element, and that is that the joint feasibility study on a possible upgrade for our free trade agreement has recently been finalized in the first days of January, and an MOU has been signed during Premier Li Qiang's visit in Switzerland. And this prepares the ground for negotiations on a modernized agreement by defining their scope. But also we have new topics like cooperation in finance. That's one of the new topics between Switzerland and China. And another rather new topic is that we are exploring trilateral cooperation in favor of developing countries. This is something which has also been flagged at the Sitka Forum here in Beijing last fall. We will always remain a credible advocate for multilateralism, peace and stability, and respect for universal rights. And for this, we will use the big number of landmark events that we will have with China. And let me end with this, because this year we will celebrate the 10th anniversary of our free trade agreements entry into force. Next year, 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations. And in 26, the 10th anniversary of the founding of the Innovative Strategic Partnership with China. And as you know, such events always bring a very good opportunity to connect on many levels between your country and China. And you can use those years to give significance to many of the dialogues that you have. And I really hope that with this, we will overcome the, let's say, the difficult years for the bilateral dialogues, not for the relations, but for the dialogues. And with this, I want to end, and I want to thank you again for listening to my future milestones.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Burry, for your wonderful remarks. I know that Sino-Switzerland relation is really getting a lot of progress, particularly with the Premier Li Qiang's visit just recently last week. It was a great highlight there. We're very impressed. I know we come to the conclusion of an Ambassador Roundtable, but we still have two chief editor of the publishing house there. We have Dr. Li from Springer Nature. We have Madame Wang Xin from the the World Affairs Press of Foreign Affairs. I don't know if you want to say a few words at the end, just to come back to the book.
Thank you, Dr. Wang, and thank you all for your nice presentations. The discussion was just humbling and enabling for me to listen to. After listening to all of you, I'm only happy that we have published the book, and I'm grateful that you have entrusted your contributions and essays to this book publication. And because Springer has been publishing for books for nearly 119 years, but we have only been publishing scholarly works. And this one differs from our regular program in many aspects. And one thing that is difficult to me is that the style that you write is elegant and still accessible, which is very different from the dry and dreadful style that we publish in the scientific books. So for these, again, I thank you very much for contributing your wonderful works. And also I look forward to sharing the whole book with the global readers. And one reminder I want to make is that this book is published open access, which means the paywall is removed for readers around the world. So anyone with internet access can freely read, download, and share the full content of the book. And according to our analysis, open access contents are being used by 60% more readers around the world. And these 60% are mostly readers from the lower income countries where universities and institutes are often not affordable of the expensive ebook collections. And in that way, I hope this book will again make a bigger, much bigger global impact among more and wider audience groups than our regular programs. And also I'm happy to see the Chinese version is coming out, and I wish all the success for the Chinese version in the Chinese market. Thank you.
谢谢. Thank you. So 王总要不要讲两句？不讲 ，OK. So we still have Chief Editor Wang from World Affairs Press listen to all of you throughout the whole afternoon, which is great. So just to conclude, I hope we still got a few 2 minutes left. But yes, again, I want to be very thankful for all of you spend your precious afternoon here at the CCG. But we are launching two most important books to China and to the world. And then we are having really, I think you have expressed all your great views, even though some different views, but we understand. We have to communicate. We need to dialogue. We need to let people hear, but also reflect that to different departments for the further consultation and of course to clarify some of those differences. But again, I think your book speaks for itself. It will be really become very prevalent in China. And again, we want to thank all of you. Thank our editor, Chief Editor Wang, and President, Chief Editor Li Yan, and all our staff here for helping in this. But most important, all the contributors, all the ambassadors, and everybody here. So once again, we thank you all very much, and we had a very fruitful discussion. We'll summarize, we'll disseminate, and we'll try to bring more understanding and exchanges and dialogues in China. So that's our CCG purpose. That's the purpose of this book as well. So after this, we'll have a little break, and then we'll have a great reception. We're going to have people come in. We have Ambassador Wu Hailong, Wu Hongbo, and quite a few department heads of different Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Commerce and other ministry of international liaison. So we hope that we'll have a great evening. Also, we hope all stay and have a more dialogues. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.